you're on.
Good morning, everyone. I think we're ready to begin. Good in the back? Awesome. So welcome to our session on the architecture of change, building systems that learn and adapt. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Brea Lowenberger. I'm the director of Create Justice and Access to Justice Research Lab at the University of Saskatchewan, the lead of our provincial collaborative, the Saskatchewan Network, and strategic advisor to the Action Committee, and I'm pleased to be moderating today's session. We're really glad you're here. This workshop invites us to engage with a critical question: how do we move from innovation to true transformation in our justice system? Together, we'll explore practical tools and reflective practices that support systems not only to change, but to continuously learn, evolve, and adapt. We have a wonderful group of contributors joining us. On my very right at the end is Dr. Judy Jaunzems Fernuk, RTC MTC. She's our USask College of Law Wellbeing Coordinator. She wears a number of hats as well. She's also a lecturer in our College of Education. She will be providing research grounding and interdisciplinary perspectives to start us off. Diana Lowe, KC, is Senior Director for the Centre for Transformation at the University of Calgary, who will speak to paradigm shifts and systems change theory. And to my very right here is Leah Howie. She wears a number of hats as well, and on this panel, she is serving as a liaison to the Saskatchewan Access to Justice Network. She'll be introducing the draft primer, and I emphasize draft, primer that you'll be user testing with us today, that are already on your table. Following these presentations, we'll lead a related interactive workshop where we'll focus on user testing the primer and putting it to work and putting you to work in relation to the concepts we talk about through our presentations. You should also have a worksheet in front of you. As we move through the first two presentations, we invite you to begin reflecting on the first question on that paper, a project you're currently working on or would like to pursue that could benefit from some of the approaches that you're hearing. So with that, I will turn the mic over to Judy.
All right, thank you. Hello. I'm going to be multitasking here, and I'm not very good at that, so I've got to work a clicker and read some slides and hopefully get through this without too much distraction. And I'm going to try to keep my time down to my 15 minutes or less, so I hope you forgive me for reading through some of this material instead of speaking to it, just to keep me on time. So thank you, Brea, for that introduction. As you heard, my passions lie at the intersections of research, mental health, teaching, learning, and justice. So all of those are topics that kind of light me up. And I heard a lot on day one from both participants and speakers about how we actualize our goals for person-centered justice and how we do or how we don't. So my portion of today's talk is to provide an overview of how research can serve as part of the architecture for change, moving towards systems that both learn and adapt. So I'm going to make a case for qualitative data that uses reflection in action, and I hope to frame the type of research we are interested in a meaningful and human-centered light. An overarching question guiding this work, for me at least, has been how can we move from innovation to transformation, which has its heart at two key components. The first, what are we learning? And the second, how are we adapting? So I make a case for research as the infrastructure for change, not as something we do before action, but as something we do as action. I'm going to start with a question for you, and you have the handout in front of you there, so feel free to use it to write on, and just bring you back to thinking about something, a project, a system, a tension that you're currently working within, and name it. And I won't get into the psychology behind writing things down and seeing it with your eyes on paper, but there is some research around that being a small component to helping us move to action. So if you can think about that as just a few words to center yourself in terms of where you might go today. And then next, we may all have different experiences with research. I know there's probably some researchers in the room, academics, new researchers, beginning researchers, those of you that may conduct primary or secondary research, and those that just work with research within your systems. And I'd like you to think about how research could become a lever for transformation in your work. And if you come up with any new ideas here this morning, we'll be ending the morning, as Brea said, with tools for leading collaborative change via our draft workbook, and that may help you possibly actualize that. So one of my first goals is to talk about sometimes underutilized research methodologies that I feel can lead directly to change. And this involves qualitative research as an overarching paradigm. So specifically, qualitative research helps us to dissect complex social problems and provide in-depth, human-centered insights. So it can help us attack real-world problems and lead directly to insights that lead change and have impact. Qualitative research is participatory by nature. I focus on this type of research because it centers stories, and we aren't mining for data or statistics as you would in quantitative work. We're looking to the who, what, where, when, why, and how of moving to action. Action research specifically and a combined reflective practice are what I'll frame for you as pivotal drivers of change within qualitative approaches. All right, so we'll start with the basics. What is research anyway? And first, I want to define research as action versus research for action. So this key distinction, especially in qualitative and reflective forms of action research, is fundamental. And then we'll go back to some even more basics here. So research and empirical data, two terms indicative of qualitative methodologies, but not always known. Qualitative research is both research, believe it or not, some question this, and it provides empirical data, which is sometimes confused as only being statistical. Empirical data is any research grounded in observable experiences. To define qualitative research specifically, it's research that gets at the heart of meaning making and a true understanding of one's lived experiences. And action research is a cycle of research conducted by those in the system. So by definition, as I said, it's participatory, iterative, and it begins and ends with real curiosity about people-centered problems in relation to our work. Action research starts with inquiry and moves to action right away as a core component. You try something, reflect on it, get more curious, try something else, and at each stage you're collecting data, making meaning, and working to problem solve. Reflective practice is embedded in action research, and it supports continuous learning. Individuals reflect, discuss, act, and continue the cycle until it seems problems are being solved. It's solutions and outcomes oriented. Many who use action research as a method often say, if we only study systems from the outside, we tend to reproduce them. If we study them from within, we can have the potential to transform them. So action research guides this insider type of work. All right, so I feel strongly that qualitative research in general supports justice initiatives and transformation because access to justice problems are human problems, and human problems require a human lens. And quite simply, words can compel us to act. So statistics or numbers can evoke emotion. For example, yesterday, some of the shared statistics made me angry. But stories can reach us on a different level, and they can compel that anger into action. So before I dive into framing this a little bit further, I just want to share an example of how we used qualitative participatory action research to guide improvements in the family justice system in Saskatchewan before summarizing action research as our method of reform. And this cycle, we're currently working in Saskatchewan. We just continue to go deeper and deeper as we go via the nature of action research. It's evolution or evolutionary in terms of the nature of the work. So a catalyst to our work, among other projects, Create Justice undertook legal needs assessment in 2022 by surveying a cross-section of people, lawyers, legal and non-legal community sector or service providers, And this assessment provided information. However, this wasn't the end, as it sometimes is the case with research. It was the beginning stage in a cycle involving diverse stakeholders in family justice. And I believe it was off the heels of that work where Brea and I intersected through a hallway conversation on family justice needs. And like any impactful social project, her ideas from reform centered on a collaborative structure using a logic model, much like one they were using in BC at the time. And there's an example, I believe, on page 29 in the book of a logic model, which is really just a visual roadmap displaying kind of if-then, cause-effect relationships. So this provides a story or a picture of how effort or initiative is supposed to work. These shared interests became a full-scale and funded project, thanks to the Canadian Bar Association, which helped us advance knowledge through action. We wanted to do more than provide and share information and saw this as an opportunity for collective reflection, working towards transformation through a cyclical method to highlight adverse childhood experiences in the system and promote meaningful stakeholder engagement through collective impact around a well-being focus in law. Fast forward to the last couple of years, and we continue the cycle, as is with action research, it's ongoing. This means staying with a collaborative, cyclical process, moved by the voices of participants who remind us of the impact of continuing the search for meaningful solutions, bringing all stakeholders around the table where possible. The second point is being intentional around these relational considerations. So one of the things we did as part of this project was collect a group of insiders to support a project advisory committee, help us identify issues and plan. So the researcher in action research is not working alone, and they are not working outside of the system. They are inside the system gathering people to help them do the work. We held focus groups based on community members, availability and need. That was a key piece. We're not picking the time and place. We're getting input on those things and providing participants with preparatory materials to access information, guiding the inquiry prior to engaging, so informing them ahead of time. Our most recent report highlights the processes and impact of actively engaging stakeholders in shaping the research design, data collection, and interpretations, advancing the knowledge of the original unmet legal needs data via strategy mapping. That can be seen in your workbook around page 31. So all of this to say, our method is our reform. Action research is a method that provides a visual projection of how change happens via actionable steps in a cycle. It's a model for getting past problems and trying to work towards solutions. So for us, this is research as best practice, people-centered, with 4 key shifts to empower and encourage people to engage. So the first is a move from who are the experts to asking who should participate. The people most impacted by the work are the knowledge holders. They should be heard. Second is a move from linear solutions to adaptive cycles through systems designed to learn and grow, not just deliver findings. 3, a move from transactional justice to transformational justice, people-centered, action-oriented justice, and it's work that is reciprocal, reflective, and respectful. And 4, a shift from survival in a system to safety in a system, which means understanding that psychology and neuroscience can teach us that our systems are more often mirrors or causes of trauma rather than a means through which to mend it. And I know getting justice is not the same as healing, but that's another conversation. Being trauma responsive, however, is a part of the process, and it means understanding the impact of emotions and their influence at the heart of people's complex stories. So if people are at the heart of the work, we must consider how to protect them in the system and in the processes aimed at understanding the system. So last, I bring us to some of our conference questions, and I won't spend a lot of time here, but I just wanted to focus for a moment on conference question 1. our reforms or our ideas included how we view access to justice and how we respond, not just recognizing need, but responding, reflecting, reacting, repeating the process as part of trying to get to our goals. And the goals include shifting from system-centered to people-centered justice, aiming to design around human capacity, not institutional convenience. That's a key. Number 2, shifting from fragmentation to integrated relational systems, looking to cross-sector interdisciplinary collaboration. So we have legal, health, education, academia, community on board. And shifting from static reform to continuous learning, embedding action research cycles into system reform and redesign, and shifting from information and meaning making using qualitative lived experience as core evidence. Last, we aim to be more trauma-informed and responsive through this work, which means being dignity-centered, human-centered, not just recognizing harm, but structuring systems around worth, voice, dignity, and agency where we can. And that's always a learning journey. And then the second conference question around questions and inquiries and curiosities that we have through this work include many questions, I'll bring a few up here, that we hope spark continued engagement and curiosity in a process that's evolutionary and ongoing. So you don't actually ever arrive and you're always asking new questions and staying open and curious. There we go. And this is my last slide here. So just in closing, our hope is that in sharing research and ideas like this that respond to needs and offer ongoing reflection and problem solving, we can influence and continue learning with an interdisciplinary growth mindset. Sorry, my clicker's not working for me here. And continue reflection on the relationship needs with the system. So as we come full circle from, my earlier invitation where I asked you to write down a project or attention or a system that needs your attention, and asking you to consider how research can help you impact change. I hope you have, a few ideas from the moments I had here to share and or questions that spark curiosity and inquiry, and you can consider any of those as you move through the workbook later this morning, and we'll be around to help you with that. So thank you for bearing with me there on qualitative research, and I pass it over to Diana to take us a little further.
And we're going to keep going at a bit of a clip. I'm also going to be reading because otherwise we wouldn't ever get to the workbooks. So thank you all for joining the workshop today. I'm going to be talking to you about work that's been underway in Alberta since 2013 when the Action Committee reports first came out. We call it Reimagining the Family Justice System. And I suppose I could have moved forward to that point. I'm going to be drawing on the work and the learnings in the initiative to reimagine the family justice system because, as Judy was describing, it is an iterative process, it's a learning process, and we really like to think of our work as creating that culture of learning. I won't be able to talk much about the details of the work that we've done. I'm really going to focus in on the paradigm shift that was called for by the Action Committee. So if any of you want to learn more about the RFJS initiative, just let me know and I can share information with you. I'll also talk briefly towards the end about a new Centre for Transformation that's been established in Alberta based on this work. So as we work together to reimagine the family justice system, we're writing a story of transformation. And transformation is really at the heart of the stories that the late Harold Johnson shared in his book, The Power of Story. If you haven't already had a chance to read it, I highly recommend adding The Power of Story to your reading list. We all know the story of our family justice system. It's a story that was well documented in the 2013 Beyond Wise Words report of the Action Committee. And as Harold would say, the time has come to rewrite the story. We believe that the changes that we're seeking in Alberta are beginning to manifest. Judy spoke about the importance of research, both qualitative and action research, and I just want to underline for you that the Canadian Forum on Civil Justice that led to the work of the Action Committee and helped with the creation of the Action Committee was really responsible for a significant amount of both action research and research that helps us to understand the needs and the desires of the public in the civil and family justice systems. And all of the reports from those earliest years, the first 10, 12 years of the Canadian Forum on Civil Justice from 98 to 2010 are still available on the website of the Forum. I was back looking at them just recently, and I really recommend to everyone that you take a look at those if you're interested in this work around family justice reform in particular. The Forum was deeply involved in creating and supporting the work of the Action Committee. I actually was the executive director of the Forum through those early years, and I can tell you that the research we were involved in and the reports of the Action Committee that came out in 2013 were all seeking to improve access to justice. And it was assumed that that was what was needed. The reports didn't really question that assumption. In the Family Working Group report, which was called Beyond Wise Words, there were 33 recommendations which essentially focused on improving access to justice, including the framing of the family matters as legal disputes. But at the same time, the reports called for a paradigm shift. The Family Working Group report at pages 2 to 3 said, despite these changes, reports and inquiries continue to call for further reform, saying that the changes to date, while welcome, are simply not enough. The reports continue to advocate for a more dramatic shift to non-adversarial approaches, calling for drastic change, a fundamental overhaul, and a paradigm shift. Similarly, the Roadmap report raised this concern in Part 2, which focused on moving forward, 6 guiding principles for change. The discussion began with a call for a culture shift and observed that the previous approach to access to justice problems and solutions, far from succeeding, has produced our present unsustainable situation. Those are quotes, that's not me saying that. The report set out 6 guiding principles to help support the new culture, which included number 6, a focus on outcomes. In Alberta, the RFJS collaborators focused on the call for a paradigm shift, the description of harms in the Family Working Group report, and the guiding principles in the Roadmap report, which recognize that we need to move beyond process and focus on outcomes. This slide reflects the kind of very strong statement that is often made about the family justice system. And when we show this to members of the public who have experienced family justice processes or who know others who have been involved in separation, divorce, family violence, or child welfare matters, they nod their heads. It led us to understand that we need to improve outcomes for families, and we start here because it helps to underline the urgency for change. What you have in front of you now is an excerpt from the Action Committee Roadmap for Change report, where you can see what they called for was a focus on outcomes in action principle number 6. This has always made me think about Trevor Farrow's 2014 article, What is Access to Justice?, in which he found that while some members of the public adopt the concepts of justice and access to justice as we've tended to think of them within the justice system, things like faster time to trial, the right to a lawyer, simplified processes, self-help centers, expanded use of mediation, and concerns about efficiencies, but those are all about processes. That's our long-standing paradigm, which I think of as the access to justice paradigm. In contrast, Trevor found that the majority of the members of the public spoke about justice and access to justice in terms of the right to a good life. I think that should really give us pause, as it is completely different from what the legal system has tended to seek in our efforts to increase access to justice. In Alberta, in the RFJS initiative, we think this is because the public is much more concerned about outcomes than with process, and we think it's the outcome of well-being. Cree elders in Alberta have noted to me that this is also reflected in the concept of Mailpim Tisuan, or the right to a good life. So it relates very well to Indigenous ways of knowing and thinking. There really wasn't guidance, though, in the Action Committee reports about how we go about changing the paradigm. Indeed, we actually now see the reports as calling for a paradigm shift, but making recommendations that are about improving the existing paradigm. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I think that what the reports did was to set up a bit of a tension or even some confusion. talking both in recommendations about improving access to justice, which is really the existing paradigm, and then also calling for a paradigm shift. And that tension continues today. As Judy reminded us, we've been invited to consider the question, what reforms has your work identified to improve access to justice? And then a second question about research on a paradigm shift. I'm going to suggest to you that the better question would be, what have we done to shift the paradigm from access to justice to a focus on outcomes or well-being? And if we're talking about an implementation gap, which was talked about a lot in the original reports, and I heard it through the day yesterday, I would suggest that it's the gap in understanding and implementing the much-needed paradigm shift. Now, in fairness, the concept of a paradigm or a culture shift is perhaps one of the most challenging concepts to describe. Some important systems experts have written about this and helped us to understand that it's about opening up our minds to imagining what's possible. I'm going to recommend to you, if you're interested in this, that you look at the work of Donella Meadows, in particular in a book that was published after she passed away, but all based on articles that she had written. The book is called Thinking in Systems, and one of the really key chapters in that book is her original article on leverage points. It's a really important piece of work. In her work, she talks about how we change systems by, the most important way is by paradigms or the ability to see the context that you're working in, and beyond that, being able to transcend paradigms or the ability to stand outside of the system that you're working with, see other influences, systems, and contexts that need to be taken into account. And I really think that that helps us to understand why working in a collaborative way and bringing multiple different players from different systems together really helps us with that ability to transcend the system and understand the system from a different perspective. A helpful framework that we use in Alberta to explain a paradigm shift is the adaptive loop, and you'll find this in the workbook. What systems experts know is that systems are always changing. They begin in the lower left-hand quadrant as a new idea. They develop, and eventually they become a new system at the top right, or the maturity level of the adaptive loop. And you can see, if you look at the words around that loop and in the center of the loop, that at the maturity level, the focus of leadership is on managing and conserving, and the traits of leadership are all about efficiency, stability, conservation, hierarchy, rules, and procedures. This is really about system improvement or reform, the kind of good work that is done in an existing system to keep it working well. And I would say that has been the focus of efforts around improving access to justice. Important, good work. Systems can stay in that maturity level for a long time. Sometimes we come to assume that that's the way things have to be. It certainly is the way we see the world, as Donella Meadows says, and it's how assumptions become embedded. But every system eventually reaches the point of declining results, like the statements that the family justice system is doing more harm than good. Ultimately, all mature systems need to be released and new ideas need to be allowed to emerge. And so the release, exploration, and development phases in the adaptive loop are about the transformation. Paradigm shifts tend to be successful not only when there is concern about the existing system, but also when supported by new evidence. Think about campaigns to stop smoking, to make seatbelt use mandatory, to use blue boxes, or other environmental changes. New evidence, most often about harms, were behind those and helped to bring about change. In terms of the family justice paradigm shift, the new evidence that guides, drives, and supports this paradigm shift in Alberta is brain science. Brain science includes the adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and from these studies, which are international replicated studies, we know that the impact of ACEs increase exponentially the more ACEs a young person experiences. In Alberta, we see the adverse childhood experiences directly relevant to family justice issues like this. Separation and divorce is one of the 10 ACEs. Abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction are the 3 categories of ACEs and are part of the situations arising in child welfare and family violence matters. The family justice system often exacerbates and even causes toxic stress for children and adults involved with it because it's based on an adversarial model of dispute resolution. Families are focused on the winning or losing rather than on important social, relationship, parenting, financial, and health challenges that they often need to build skills and gain supports in order to address. Unfortunately, the removal of children from their family home and the incarceration of a parent are themselves ACEs. So what this means is that the responses our systems have often had to situations of violence have actually added to the ACEs burden for children in these families. It really is no wonder that so many family justice reports have suggested that the family justice processes do more harm than good. The science proves it. We can, and we say must, bring about fundamental change. We need to work to reduce harms, to break cycles of intergenerational trauma, and to create a system that supports resilience. So in spite of the really challenging outcomes that we see through the ACEs studies, there's also hope in the brain science knowledge. The Harvard Center identified 3 principles to build resilience, which are important for reshaping policies and programs to ensure that we focus our approach on helping families to achieve healthy outcomes in spite of adverse experiences. In the RFJS, we refer to this as helping families thrive, and we're focusing on all 3 of the principles. The way we're applying these at the level of transforming the family justice system is first in providing positive supports, which we can achieve by helping families to gain the kinds of supports they need for their social, relationship, parenting, financial, and health challenges. Second, to strengthen skills and abilities to manage stress, which can include executive functioning skills that help to reduce conflict, to improve communication, and to learn better parenting skills. And this is represented in this model by shifting the fulcrum and helping to add weight to the positive outcomes. And thirdly, we're looking at decreasing negative experiences, and while we can't control all of the elements of families' lives, in terms of the system, often includes reducing the role of legal adversarial processes. So when we're working in systems change, we're working in complexity. We don't have easy solutions or even hard solutions. What we have are theories of change or theories of transformation. And if you're not already working in this field, you'll have heard those concepts and not perhaps have been sure what they meant. I know we weren't when we began. But they really are informed by the kind of approaches that Judy was describing for us, where we identify a theory, we test that, we try something, and we evaluate or reflect on it, just as she described. The RFJS theory of transformation was developed through a powerful process we were able to undertake with many different groups of our collaborators. As we did this, we realized that most of what families are dealing with in their family situations, whether it's family restructuring, child welfare, or family violence, is actually about their financial fears, their social needs, their relationships, their parenting, and their health needs. There may be a legal element, but it's not the biggest part of what they're dealing with. And yet what the justice system has focused on has always been what has been perceived as legal needs. And what we realized is that by giving so much priority and focus to legal responses, we're definitely not helping families to address their financial, social, relationship, parenting, or health needs. Indeed, the tools of our legal system often make the situation worse for families because we really have the tools for fighting. It's an adversarial system. So what we have said in Alberta is we need to untangle the social, relationship, parenting, financial, and health needs from the legal, ensure that families have the skills and supports that they need in order to address all of their challenges. And much of what we're doing is creating a different path for families to reduce the reliance on legal adversarial processes and to ensure that families obtain the skills and supports that they need outside of legal adversarial processes. To do that, we're collaborating with many different sectors to get their assistance and their guidance and co-create new pathways for families. And that is our paradigm shift. We're focusing on the outcome of well-being. We're imagining, and the new story that we're telling is a family justice system where families thrive. So I'm going to go over slightly, but I'm going to just keep barging through here. People want to know a little bit about what changes are happening. There's all kinds of frameworks that are really valuable. They're in the workbook for you. And as I said, I'm happy to share some of that with you. We've been working, though, in the community of Grande Prairie, and that's a little overhead picture of Grande Prairie, over the last 6 years. And now in Alberta are just beginning to scale the work to 5 communities around Edmonton, because what we're seeing in Grande Prairie is really moving the needle for change. And so I hope that this helps with some of the sense that this is too hard and we don't know how to make this big change happen. what I will just briefly tell you about is so much more work than what this actually looks like. But after many years of working together and extensive work to build non-legal supports in the community and work across multiple sectors, the court became convinced that it was possible to publish a notice to the profession in public, which went out in early October 2024, and is designed to empower families to focus on the financial, social, relationship, parenting, and health issues that are central to the family challenges. To go back into community, not in a court, to seek the supports and the skills that will help them to build resilience. And there's a specific referral source and a hub and an entire community that is ready to address those needs. I can share with you the observations both of the judges who sit in Grande Prairie, the action team we created from across the community, and from the broader community of Grande Prairie, that we're observing a real reduction in cases that are being litigated in the courtroom. We are seeing cases where there is high conflict parenting and where there's domestic violence still in a courtroom, and that is our next area of focus, is to find better ways, perhaps restorative approaches and others that will help us with that. And we know that there's more work to be done in those areas. But when we see that there's fewer cases in the courts, it's not just a matter of reducing the volumes in our courts, but what we know is happening is that those families are getting the supports they need. They are finding better ways forward. They're supporting their families, they're building resilience, and they're able to resolve the issues that now seem much more straightforward for them as a result of all of those supports that are in place. And people are anxious to see this moved to other parts of the province at this point. I promised I would speak to you about the Centre for Transformation. I'm going to do so really, really briefly. The work that we've been doing in Alberta was initially supported mostly by the Government of Alberta through a backbone, and I was helping to co-lead that work when I was in the role as Executive Counsel to the courts. Over the period from 2020 to 2025, we had no funding. And it kept going. That was when we did the work in Grande Prairie. It's when the pilot came about. And what happened there was that I actually retired and did this work as my retirement project. And that was my first retirement, though, because I'm back now. The work that we were doing was gaining traction, getting noticed. The Law Foundation of Alberta approached me. They were already in conversations with the Faculty of Law and the Faculty of Social Work, and there was a real interest in doing work around transformational change. We decided to put together jointly a proposal to create a Centre for Transformation that would support and provide the backbone support for the RFJS, but also be a place of learning about how do you do transformational change. In January 2025, the University of Calgary was able to announce an amazing grant of $26.8 million to the university. 16 million of that is for the hiring of 2 fully endowed research chairs, one in law, one in social work. The remaining 10 million is spread over 5 years for the Centre for Transformation for staff who are involved in the action of bringing about this change. And I've been brought back from retirement as the Senior Director of the Centre for Transformation. We're hiring staff and we're supporting the work that's happening. So with that, a little bit over time, I apologize. I'll leave it. Thank you.
Okay, this one? Yep. Okay, hi everyone, I'm Leah. I am now going to give you a brief overview of the primer, which you have in front of you. It's the large document. So if you'd like to, while I'm speaking, pick it up and start flipping through. I won't be offended to see your heads down and pages turning, so dig into it with me. I'm gonna give just a quick 5-minute introduction to the document before we move into the workshop. Sorry, just making sure this is good for the recording, before we move into the workshop component with Brea. Okay, so the primer in front of you builds on and draws from existing people-centered justice collaboration and change resources. The primer introduces several core concepts and tools that can help bridge the implementation gap, that can shift from ideas to action and systems reform. So the primer is broken down to 2 kind of core concepts. The first is about reflective practice, and the second is tools for change. And the tools we suggest can serve as an anchor for effective collaboration. They can provide structure to help organize thinking, but they're not solutions in and of themselves. They can be used to help recognize patterns, gain clarity, and strengthen collaboration by encouraging a common language, and to position collaboration as both deliberate and strategic. So the primer in front of you can be used individually or collectively, so for your own work or in a team. It could also be used to advance initiatives within a single organization or in a collaborative, if there's several organizations working on an initiative. The primer also has a goal of trying to build capacity for collaborative leadership by strengthening skills required to work across various roles, disciplines, and organizations. Okay. So this is the table of contents, page 2 of your primer. I've just included a screenshot of this just to give you a high-level explanation of the primer's contents, so you can flip to it and look at it. And like I said before, concept 1 is the reflective practitioner, concept 2 is tools for change, and we've grouped those tools together in 3 common themes. So if you need to figure out where do we need to go, what do we need to do to get there, and how will we get there, is kind of how we've conceptualized how you may want to group these tools. Okay, so just briefly, concept 1, the reflective practitioner, introduces several related concepts. We talk about the rethinking cycle as compared to the overconfidence cycle. We talk about or introduce a mental models pyramid. We talk about the concept of the reflective practitioner and reflective practice as it relates to A to J. We also briefly introduce concepts of collective reflection and communities of practice, and introduce Gibbs' reflective cycle. So concept 2, sorry, I'm really cruising through this, but you'll have some more time to look into it in the workshop. Concept 2 is tools for change. So like I said before, the first grouping is where do we need to go, and we've set out 3 potential tools that you could use there. The Futures Triangle, the 3 Horizons framework, and the Giels multi-level framework. I'm just going to talk about the Futures Triangle briefly. So that's the picture that comes from the primer. So the Futures Triangle can be used to help map and discuss the drivers, constraints, and aspirations influencing possible futures. I'm going to save more of a description for it. I'll let you read it in the primer. But the picture below, we've included pictures in the primer, is actually a picture of the tool being used. So it was being used at Create Justice's Advancing Continuous Improvements in Saskatchewan's Family Justice System, that's a mouthful, workshop that we held in the fall of 2025 at the College of Law. So one of the first workshop activities invited attendees to consider the Futures Triangle, including drivers, so that was the push of the present, aspirations, the pull of the future, and constraints. So that was one of the initial activities we engaged in. So in the second grouping of tools for change, what do we need to get there? We have 4 potential tools that you might want to consider using. Theory of change, logic model, strategy mapping, and collective impact. And I'm just going to highlight one of those models on the next slide. So this is strategy mapping. Judy briefly referred to this in her comments as well. So the picture on the right, with the yellow boxes, is a strategy map that's been created by BC's Transform Family Justice System Collaborative. Similar to Alberta's. Is it the same? Identical.
We did them together.
Oh, there you go. Identical to Alberta's. And what a strategy map does, it can depict in one image the strategy of an organization or multiple organizations. It identifies cause and effect relationships between value objectives and actions to achieve specific outcomes. And if you want to hear more about strategy mapping, find Diana during the coffee break and talk to her about Alberta's. So our third cluster of tools for change is tools that you might use if you're in the phase of how are we going to get there. So we've set out 5 in the primer. Action research, which Judy has talked to you about today. Leverage points that Diana mentioned. Was it Donna Meadows' book? Danella Meadows' book. Human-centered design, the adaptive loop, which has also been mentioned today, and stretch collaboration. On the next slide, I'm just going to show you a picture of, Diana had the picture of the adaptive loop there. The picture below is a picture of us using it at that same workshop that I mentioned before, the Create Justice workshop in the fall. The Futures Triangle is one of the first tools that we used. The adaptive loop was almost towards the end. And so participants in that workshop discussed different aspects of the family justice system that had been discussed along the adaptive loop already, and then actually put dots on that paper indicating where they located themselves in relation to the aspects of the system and their priorities for change. Oh, how am I doing? I'm done. There we go. Over to you, Brea.
Well done.
A plus.
Gold star. Well, thanks to all three of you. Again, a round of applause for our presenters. And now we're turning it over to all of you. So at this point, we're actually going to pause. We're going to engage in a bit of individual reflection and then some collective reflection at our tables and then with the broader group. So at this point, I'd invite you to begin by taking a few minutes to, I wouldn't say review the primer, but glance through it, skim through it, and to also turn to the worksheet in front of you. Given our limited time, I'd encourage you to pay special attention to the table of contents and use that to identify one tool that speaks to you off the hop that may feel most relevant to your context or initiative that you'd like to think about in relation to the tool. And so in particular, there's the three headings as Leah described. Where do we need to go? Designing strategic direction. Starting at page 18, what do we need to get there? Designing the scope of page change at page 26. And how will we get there? Designing and implementing individual and collective initiatives at page 35. And so if you're thinking about an initiative, thinking about where you're at in either planning it or implementing it in relation to those three headings, we'd invite you to just pick a tool, and we'll give you about 5 minutes to look at the primer and pick a tool that feels relevant to you.
It's down to 10 minutes. We'll give this down to 10 minutes, maybe?
Yeah. Or less.
10 minutes would be fine. And then shorten usually is by a minute, kind of.
So this was...
Like 6 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever. Yeah, this is the most important part. This could maybe,
It could be like 5, 3, 5.
yeah.
Yeah.
Need some like background music.
Yeah.
Is that in like 5 minutes?
Hey, Mary.
Sorry, I'm an annoying student.
No, no such thing.
Pick any tool that we sort of are interested
Yeah.
in with the hopes that people will pick an array of the tools and we can unpack it.
Yeah, exactly. Good question.
I don't understand the assignment.
Yes. Any other questions?
Well, the tools are divided kind of in the sense of beginning, early phase tools to help with brainstorming to late phase. We have all the resources, we're ready to go, we just don't know how to get started.
I expect a gold star sticker.
Well done.
That's 3 seconds left.
This will take us to...
Just have them.
Judy, I have a question. It's somewhat related. So I'm a doctoral student. I just finished my coursework, so I'm looking to the proposal stages. So you mentioned action research and qualitative data.
5 minutes here.
Yep, yep, just leaning in to make sure.
Do you happen to know what like theoretical framework was used to or you suggest for the qualitative data approach? Because we talk about like folks who are underrepresented
Group.
there are different theoretical
That's just like
approaches to collecting that data
all of us.
within the action.
Group sharing, 3 groups.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
there one that you
Or we don't have to.
yeah, I'd have to look back at the guide, and take, or at our report and take a look, just to be sure. I can actually pull it up here. and just
Sorry,
see.
that's like a true doctoral student.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and I'm just gonna see if we framed that. If I can find the report. But I can certainly get you a link to the report. And I forgot to mention, because we have all of them
Yeah, they could.
posted online. I'll take a look.
And then,
Okay,
Yeah.
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 don't we? Like, that's the only thing that...
Framework that's
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Get rid of these 2 questions.
parallel from.
Yes,
And we just
yeah,
ask them to-
absolutely. Yeah, I'll take a look and see, because we've done a few different projects and had different,
Maybe
yeah.
you intercede in 75% when you tell people to stay by themselves.
Sorry?
Maybe when you got in at that, just have you tell people to move to a table they're sitting by themselves.
Yeah.
There's 1, 2, yeah.
on. Okay, there we go. Invite you to now turn to someone near you, so feel free to join a table if you're sitting solo, and share some of your reflections. So invite you to use this time to compare any insights that you've had throughout this time together, ask questions, explore where your experiences overlap or differ. With that, particularly looking at questions 2 and 3 on your worksheet. What opportunities do the tools in the primer present for your work? What barriers or challenges might limit the use of the tools in the primer? So you can share what project you're thinking of, what tool you're thinking of, and look at questions 2 and 3. And we really are looking, this is a draft, and so we really are looking for your feedback on the primer. So we would like to collect these worksheets at the end. So please do fill them out with your honest, constructive, and critical critiques.
Moving around, talk about things.
Yeah. 5 minutes. Strategy map.
Logic model?
Strategy map. Oh, yeah. Maybe I don't have one with the table of contents in front of me. Do you have one?
Here. It should.
30.
Page 30. I should probably walk around. We said we'd walk around and like help people. But, I don't know.
I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
If they're asking questions if they need to.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to jump in. No.
So we're an actual, I think we find ourselves to be in this human-centered design category, where I experienced a problem, which was there are a lot of accountable people.
Not you.
Started up. I was like 4:52. I'm done. Okay, how many seconds did I left? I think I had 3 seconds left. Yeah. I'm not going to because they're having good shots. Oh, good shots. Okay. That's what Brea was talking about. It seems like they're like, yeah. But if you
Kind
want,
of
go
if you
ahead.
want.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like, yeah. So I'm happy to sit and watch. It's actually interesting to like watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Observe.
Yeah. Look at that action research.
Yes.
Observation cycle or something. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
It's like where to zoom.
Yeah, it'd be a point of data collecting.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, still hearing lots of discussion, but I think we're going to call the group back. We have about 8 minutes left, and so we wanted to give each table about 2 minutes to, what?
I'm talking to myself, like report back.
Yeah. We'll give each table 2 minutes to share any insights, any kind of immediate reactions you had, your group had, to the primer. Anything else?
And insights from the
Yeah.
conversation, and then feedback on the primer.
Yeah. So insights you'd like to share, and then immediate reaction and feedback to the primer.
Let's go table by table.
Yeah.
Okay, call one.
Anyone like to start?
We'll just go table by table, so all tables will speak eventually. Go ahead.
Well, this might be a very sort of mundane thing, but one of the things that we identified is that depending on the context of your work, you might have, you know, a very flexible, how to describe it, but, you know, a place where innovation, change, you know, revolution is sort of simple and there's lots of opportunity for that. Or you might have very legislative or bureaucratic kind of contexts where change is slow and challenging, and where you might, like, some of the elements of it might include, like, people in positions of authority and power who are willing to ideas. And so that's, influences a lot where you might be looking at what tools might be available.
No? Okay.
Well, if we're speaking to a report, do you want people to come tonight?
If they can, yeah, then.
The recording captures it, and that this was all possible.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. Any reactions?
You've already heard my reaction, but the others in the room haven't. I think in this kind of big systems work, and certainly what we've experienced in Alberta, but I've been out in Saskatchewan, in New Brunswick, and other jurisdictions, there are leaders that come forward. We really find in Alberta that it's very important that the big institutional players of our justice system are open to this kind of change. So this isn't just a grassroots movement and then you're banging on the door and hoping to bring about change. They're engaged with it, and they're actually empowering the conversation by saying, yeah, we can't keep doing this. How do we change it? And they actually open themselves up to opportunities for co-creating. The opportunities came about in Alberta through the Action Committee and through the reports, where it was taken very seriously to do this kind of work. And so we just then said, well, then let's start asking these questions and bringing people together. It's driven by curiosity. It's driven by looking at what do we know already and then continuing to learn and creating that culture of learning. And it may seem hard to believe, but we had assistant deputy ministers and judges at the front of the room raising questions, talking with a lot of emotion about what they were experiencing in their worlds, and then really inviting people to engage. We invited the ministers of justice, the head of the law societies, these institutional players to speak at some of our early workshops. And that really just kind of gave permission to the rest of the group to work on this, because the leaders were buying into it. So it's not to say it's easy, but leadership and looking for those opportunities and raising that up is how we were able to in Alberta.
Thanks, Diana. Let's move, Jane, your table. Any insights, immediate reactions to the primer or these concepts? And if you don't feel comfortable coming, we can take notes. It's all good.
No, that's all good. Hi, I'm Rhea Bailey. I'm the VP of Legal Strategy from Legal Aid BC. I think just like from an immediate reaction or feedback on the primer, like I love it. I love the way that the tools are laid out. I think that it's really visually nice to look at, and it's concise, and I'm all for kind of strategy on a page. So I really appreciated that. I think that in focusing in on question 2, what opportunities do the tools and the primer present for your work? I would say that it's a different way to consider how we think about change and some new options for designing the future, which I really appreciate. I think that especially in the legal aid space, we're often constrained. We have lots of things we want to do, but like anyone, we have constrained resources and we have to be really focused. And I think when we think about designing the future, collaboration is one of the ways we can kind of stretch our impact. And so I look forward to using the primer in that context. And thank you.
We have some extras, as you might notice, on the table, so please take them, recognizing they're a draft, and we've already noticed some of our own typos and things, so.
They're really heavy to get here, so please don't make us take them home. Please take them.
So heavy.
So heavy.
Let's head to the front here. Any insights or immediate reactions your group would like to share?
Because I think that we have a similar problem. So the thing that's been sitting on my desk since about 2 weeks ago, from a legal aid perspective, is what we're doing with the tort of IPV, and how does that fit? How do we manage the taxpayer dollars in that in a legal aid system? And it's exceptionally complicated, and we were hoping we could kind of put our heads in the sand and say, civil damages over there, we never touch them and we don't. But it's very clear that our unified family court is going to expect that that's where the claims fall. So I like this because I'm just kind of looking for a place to start. And this at least provides some frameworks to conceptualize a problem and a path. And I think really there's so many of our provincial legal aid programs are going to have to both adapt for geographically what we have to deal with, the funding problems we all have to deal with, and also the coverage problems, because we also know that many provinces have limited scope in terms of what they do in family law. So there's like a lot of opportunity for collaboration, and at the same time we are all going to be kind of constrained by our own policies that we're working under. But thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have a couple minutes left. We'll move to the last table. Any insights or immediate reactions?
I'm Karen Sawatsky with the Legal Information for Incarcerated Manitobans Project, and we didn't have enough time. I'm looking at I was still reflecting. The draft looks like there are tools that will help us. We're in the stages right now of trying to conceptualize a continuation of our project and what that would look like. And I really think that some of the feedback loops and figuring and some of the references are going to be helpful in determining how we might want to address that. So that's kind of where we are.
Great, thank you so much. So we are at time. I would just like to, on behalf of our panelists, our group, thank you so much for engaging with these concepts. As was mentioned earlier, it can sometimes feel lonely in terms of the work in this world, and so it's a lot of fun to see all of you discuss the work that we've been really engaging with for some time. So thank you to you. And if you haven't already, if you even have a couple of ideas you want to jot down on those worksheets that you didn't get to share, that would be really helpful. We genuinely will be taking folks' feedback into account into our next iteration.
Okay, Legal team.
And if you don't feel like it now, there's a website that you can direct feedback to, or email address, sorry.